Again, thank you for joining us for the Public Information Center meeting for the intersection improvements of Morris Street, County Route 510 and Ridgedale Avenue. My name is Christopher Mara. I'm with GPI, and we're a consulting engineering firm assisting Morris County and NJTPA with the design of this project. Today, we'll review our efforts to date for this project, starting with a quick overview of the federal funding process and NJTPA's role. We'll then review the project location, purpose and need, existing conditions, our analysis of the traffic operations and crash history, our proposed improvements and next steps, and then we'll open it up for questions or comments. So Christine, I didn't know if you'd like to go over these two slides.
Sure. Yeah. So this project, both design and construction, is being funded by the Federal Highway Administration. I'm with the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority. We're the metropolitan planning organization that represents the 13 counties in northern New Jersey. So we provide federal funds to counties and municipalities for, in this particular case, for safety improvement projects. So I manage the local safety program. It's a program that was created by NJTPA to fund federal dollars from the Highway Safety Improvement Program Fund. It's a special pot of money from Federal Highway that funds safety improvements at locations, corridors, or intersections which are identified as high crash based on existing crash data. So we have a solicitation that we do with our counties every other year. They submit applications, and then once our board approves them, we move them into design, and then ultimately, as we go through this federal process, they'll be authorized for construction. So this is the federal process and the project timeline. So like I said, it was an application. It was approved by the NJTPA board into a specific program year. We went through consultant selection to hire the design consultant. Once they were on board, we began preliminary engineering. That's the phase that we're currently in. The consultant has spent quite a bit of time now working on data collection, laying out and refining the design of that intersection based on the data that they have collected. We've met with local officials, and then we're here tonight to do a public information center, and that's a required and integral part of any federally funded project, because at this point we're looking for comments and also answering questions from members of the public on what's being proposed at this intersection. Once we complete this PIC meeting, and if there's any changes that are made to the design, then we move on to getting an environmental document approval. It's a process that we work with New Jersey Department of Transportation on. It's part of every federal project to have an environmental document. It's called a categorical exclusion document approval. Once we have that, then we can move into final design right away if there is any on the project, and then the project can be authorized for construction. This whole pipeline process that you see here laid out takes about 5 years when a project first enters to the time that it gets to construction. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Christine. So we'll go over the project location. The project area consists of the intersection of Morris Street and Ridgedale Avenue, which is located approximately 800 feet west of I-287 and a half mile east of the Morristown Green. The area is primarily commercial, with a BP gas station, GT Motors used car lot, and Messler's Auto Body located immediately adjacent to the intersection. There are residential properties which are also close by, including the recently constructed Max on Morris apartment complex in the southeast quadrant. The project intersection serves as one of the primary gateways into Morristown, and multiple NJ Transit bus lines on both Morris Street and Ridgedale Avenue, coupled with its close proximity to the Morristown train station, located just west of the project aerial, make it a major hub for transit users and pedestrians. The project purpose is to provide safety and operational improvements at the intersection of Morris Street and Ridgedale Avenue. The need is driven by the intersection's ranking as number 11 on Morris County's number 11 in Morris County for NJTPA's 2023 network screening list. There was also a road safety audit which was conducted in October of 2020 along County Route 510, and that included this intersection and identified numerous deficiencies which contribute to the high crash rate within the project limits and at this intersection. Morris Street is also known as County Route 510, is an urban principal arterial which consists of 3 lanes, 2 eastbound and 1 westbound, with an ADT of 22,000 vehicles per day. Ridgedale Avenue is an urban minor arterial which consists of 4 lanes at the intersection with Morris Street and has ADT of approximately 14,000 vehicles per day. Both roadways have posted speed limits of 25 miles per hour. The project location suffers from a number of deficiencies which reduce accessibility and contributes to congestion and a high crash rate. The existing signal equipment does not meet current ADA and MUTCD standards, and the sidewalks and curb ramps are also non-compliant and or in poor condition. Parked vehicles and lots adjacent to the intersection corners regularly encroach into the sidewalk area, reducing pedestrian space. The intersection corners also have insufficient radii to accommodate the turning paths of larger vehicles such as buses or trucks. And also poor lane alignment along Morris Street increases the potential for sideswipe crashes. In October 2022, we performed a count program to collect traffic volume data within the project limits. Turning movement counts were performed at the intersection during typical weekday AM and PM peak hours, as well as the Saturday afternoon peak hours. Automatic traffic recorders, or ATRs for short, were installed along the main lines to collect traffic volumes for a full week along both roadways. Using the collected traffic data, we prepared traffic model in Synchro and analyzed the existing conditions as well as the 2050 future conditions using population and employment projections from NJTPA. While it may be difficult to read on your screen, the image on the right shows an example of our traffic volume flow diagram for the intersection. The traffic analysis provides the anticipated delay for the intersection and various approaches and assigns a letter grade to the level of service, or LOS for short. Where A is free flow, there's basically no traffic, you can go right through, and LOS of F is essentially bumper to bumper traffic. Overall, the intersection's LOS is pretty standard for New Jersey with a B and C. So I'd say it's pretty good for New Jersey, but it's still not a level of service A. Based on analysis of the available crash data and NJDOT's Safety Voyager, we identified 49 crashes occurring within the project limits for the 3-year period from January 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2021. When compared to the statewide average, we identified overrepresentations of rear end, sideswipe, right angle, left turn, and pedestrian type crashes. We also noted overrepresentations of crashes occurring at dawn and dusk, which could be indicative of sun glare issues. The image at the right is a crash diagram from the road safety audit showing the locations and types of crashes occurring at the intersection. It should be noted that of most concern are the pedestrian, right angle, and left turn crashes, as they tend to be more severe. The October 2020 road safety audit identified a number of opportunities for improvements to safety and operations at the study intersection, including upgrades to curb ramps and driveway aprons. The road safety audit recommended traffic signal upgrades such as larger 12-inch LED traffic signal heads with retroreflective backplates, countdown pedestrian signal heads, audible PROAG compliant push buttons, and also to investigate split phasing for the Morris Street eastbound and westbound approaches. Lighting, which is currently provided via decorative street lights, suffers from repeated knockdowns, which results in dark spots. A refresh of the pavement markings and use of high visibility ladder style crosswalks, as well as signing upgrades, would benefit safety and reduce potential conflicts for vehicles. Lastly, driveway access within and adjacent to the intersection should be investigated for potential improvements. So this is a plan of our proposed improvements, and if there's any questions about specific locations or anything, we can pull up the plan and zoom in. So we'll show it in a little more detail once we get into the Q&A session here. But as part of this project, we propose to widen the easterly side of Ridgedale Avenue to accommodate dual left turn lanes, a single right turn lane, and 2 receiving lanes. The widening will require a reconstruction of the sidewalk and driveway aprons, which will provide the opportunity to ensure that they are ADA compliant. The northwest corner radius will be increased to accommodate single unit trucks and buses, and the parking spaces along Morris Street at this location will be eliminated. With the recent removal of the BP gas station lot driveway along Morris Street nearest the intersection, the existing curb median along this approach can also be removed to provide wider lanes. The entire signal system will be replaced and new LED lighting will be mounted to the proposed signal poles. All curb ramps will be reconstructed for ADA or PROAG compliance. And lastly, the entire project limits will be resurfaced and restriped with high contrast pavement markings. And as I said, again, we can bring this plan up in higher detail to review later. Using our synchro model, we compared the no-build and proposed conditions. While the new layout and signal system will provide a modest improvement in operations, the pedestrian, yellow, and all red clearances will be updated based on the current MUTCD and will be a significant improvement for safety at the intersections, especially for pedestrians. All crossing locations will feature accessible pedestrian signals, which provide audible and vibrotactile indications for pedestrians to let them know when it is safe to cross. Also of note, we at this time do not propose to signalize a driveway approach from Messler's Auto Body, but we will be installing stop signs for this approach. So as Christine mentioned, our next steps for this project are to complete our categorical exclusion document and wrap up the preliminary engineering phase towards the end of this year. The environmental document will be submitted to NJDOT for approval, which is anticipated right now in the fall of 2025. Final design is anticipated to begin in the winter of 2026 with preparation of the right-of-way and contract documents and submission to NJDOT local aid for federal authorization. With all that, we anticipate final design will take approximately 1 year with advertisement, award, and construction beginning in 2027. So that concludes the presentation. If anyone would like to enter any questions or comments in the chat box, you can, or if you'd like to use the raise my hand feature, we can bring it to you. So I saw Rebecca just jump in there. So let me see if I can, I'll unmute Rebecca. And you'll be able to unmute yourself if you'd like to ask a question.
Thank you. Hi, you can hear me okay?
Hi. Yes.
Thanks so much for doing this. I was really excited to hear that the intersection is going to be addressed. Living for 26 years just east of here and walking this way to and from town and biking this way to and from town for all that time, I've definitely seen it have better and worse times, but I was surprised that the best time was when the westbound single lane was closed from Ford to Ridgedale last year, or I guess earlier this year. So one of my questions is about the timing when the counts were taken, because we know, well, I've witnessed as a cyclist that the peak hour, what rush hour is, has really changed. And I don't know if that's better. I feel like it's more distributed throughout the day and if that would influence the design. But first question of just a few that I have is when the westbound lane was closed, and initially it was a disaster, and then everything settled down and people proceeded calmly at like 25 miles an hour through Ridgedale and then on over to 287 or further east if they needed to. So when that was going on, were any counts taken of volume and particularly speed between Ridgedale and Ford when it was just the two lanes in the one direction and moved away from the curb, from the south curb?
That's a great question. As part of this study, we had not done any counts during that time, but perhaps Debbie, is there any information maybe the county has from that time period?
There was nothing that we didn't take any counts or anything at that time. That was probably after we did all of our data collection.
So it was funny because, we did a pilot once upon a time of a lane reduction on Morris Ave east of 287. And we learned a lot about making the road narrower by adding shoulders and actually removing a lane. It made life better for drivers, residents, pedestrians, and everybody. So I guess before we spend all this money to build the thing, if there's anything that can be learned from that recent pilot that we accidentally did, I know from observation, the result was actually better for pedestrians, didn't seem to be worse for drivers, and certainly better for all the properties that directly face either Ridgedale and also Morris. Because in the years, I was the councilwoman representing this district for 8 years, on the planning board for 4 before then. And, once upon a time we had a school there and a junkyard. And now we have hundreds of apartments and dozens of townhomes. So that one block is a residential neighborhood. And there's a very big problem in the roadway on Morris. I know from Elm all the way to 287 is a high crash area, but what we witness every time we drive through and try to get home is as drivers heading east on Morris approach the traffic light that we're looking at in this image, as soon as it turns green, or if it's turning yellow, they hit the gas. They've been downtown where speeds are controlled. There's a lot of activity going on. They think, I'm almost to the freeway. And their goal is to get to Ford and make that light as fast as they can. I may have missed the average travel speeds. I was a little late to this and I couldn't see on my little screen all the numbers. But if there's some way to address, either with signal timing or with the road design, a self-controlling mechanism to keep people traveling smoothly at 25 rather than at 40, the kids who live in those houses, the people coming out of the apartments, all the people trying to get to the traction line, the many workers, I'm actually among them, who commute in the road on bikes, or now the kids on scooters, would be a lot safer. So I'm a little concerned. It's great to improve throughput of the intersection, but if the end result is just more people getting through faster, that's actually a big lose for this really important part of what is downtown Morristown. And I guess that brings me to a question about, is there any way to improve crossing with islands? So, because some of those are pretty long crossings, if we can't have curb extensions, because there aren't even any shoulders, islands, a place to pause in the middle, and then micromobility and bikes. I don't really understand what the provisions are here, but if I kept a video of every time I watch somebody navigating this intersection in the road on a bike, it's all the time, every day, not just because of the traction line. People work at the Westin, people live on Malcolm Street and come across town. I don't see any provisions here that would keep people on bikes in the road safer, or that would even make the sidewalk safer to walk on by narrowing the vehicle travel lanes and maybe making the sidewalks wider, especially around Mesler's, where, as you can see here, they've carefully backed up their trucks, but you don't always have even that much room between the front of their trucks and all of those poles. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Chris, do you want to elaborate on when the traffic counts? I don't know if you have that information available, but when they were done, and the durations during the days, the hours that they were done?
So we had done the counts, which I'll go back to that slide. Yeah, the counts were done in October of 2022. So the actual peak hour counts that were counted, we selected a weekday. It was either a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, and then we also did a Saturday count that month. The automatic traffic recorder counts were done for the full week, so we have the full week's volumes. I don't believe we have speed data from that. We just have traffic volumes. I could check on that and see if the speed data was also collected, but typically it's only the volumes that's collected.
Also, Chris, do you want to talk about what we do in final design? That's when you really get into the traffic signal design and the timing of each phase, and that, adjustments are made sometimes for the pedestrians.
Yeah, I mean, for this project, at least during PE, we carefully, when we did the analysis, we took into account all the pedestrian clearances and everything. So, those are brought up to the current standards. So instead of, a 3.5 feet per second crossing speed, which is the standard for MUTCD, since we know this is a high pedestrian area, we looked at a 3 foot per second crossing speed to make that better for pedestrians. So there's more time to cross. As far as, pedestrian refuge islands, they're great. If I know some of these crossings seem long, they're good for locations where pedestrians can't make the full crossing, but our intent is to make sure that the traffic signal will provide the full time a pedestrian would need to cross. And again, with islands, it tends to be an issue for, again, we have high bus volumes, we have delivery trucks. With those islands, they tend to end up getting run over, to be to be perfectly honest. We have fairly tight lanes out here. I believe they're 11 foot, which is, yeah, we have 11-foot wide lanes, which is basically the minimum for NJ Transit buses. So I wouldn't want to narrow the lanes any further than what we have, at least on Ridgedale Avenue. They are wider on Morris Street. Perhaps we could look at striping it a bit, but again, we're just looking at the intersection. You know, I think a lot of the things that were brought up by Rebecca were corridor wide things that we need to be implemented, especially for bicycles or traffic calming beyond the intersection. Bernie,
Yeah,
do you have anything to add?
yeah, if I could just jump in really quickly. I mean, these are great questions, and I agree with Rebecca. I mean, having lived in Morristown myself, you know, there are I mean, there are a lot of pedestrians, and I've always noticed in that one corner where they have the used cars, uh, a lot of times his cars are parked over on the sidewalk. And having lived on Ridgedale Avenue, having to walk over there, sometimes you literally had to walk in the street. So we are putting the bollards in to keep those vehicles not only for sight distance for motorists, but also sight distance for and of pedestrians. So we'd try to hold them back. Would have liked to put bollards on the other side also, but the driveway for the trucks sort of prohibits that. So we need to maintain access to that. And like you said, you know, uh, it's less than 50 feet crossing. If you put a pedestrian island in, the problem with that is you have to put a push button. And there's actually, it's a really, and Rebecca brings up a great point. I have this on a intersection out by the Newark Airport, and there's a big fight within NJDOT between various divisions. Some of them want the island in because that is a FHWA safety countermeasure. But on the other hand, there's always the concern that, like you said, if people are traveling a higher speed, you have somebody who is basically stranded between opposing traffic. So that's why we made sure that we provided more than ample time for the pedestrians to cross the full length in one crossing.
Thank you all so much. I think we really do need to talk. It's funny, everyone thinks of like drivers sitting and idling and can't get through. And what I see is the biggest detriment and risk for people who actually live, walk, and ride in this area is the high speeds that drivers get as soon as they get the chance to fly across this intersection and keep going to the east and make the next light. So if there's anything we can do to make them safer, I see a chat agreeing. I guess it's the kind of thing, it's a lived experience of being on the sidewalk or in the road here. It is crazy what people will do to just go flying. They've either come off the freeway or they're getting on it, or they know Whippany Road, right, is another
Yep.
speedway.
Yep.
And it starts right here. And it should just be like, you just should know that there's no way you're making that next light at Ford. Or we slow them down somehow with something in or on or around the road.
Oh, I agree 100% with you. Like I said, I lived on Ridgedale. I'm not a 26-year resident like you are, so you know much better than I do. But having lived on Ridgedale, everybody basically just wants to get to 287 and back, you know. And Ridgedale is that one point where they come in to Morristown and they leave. It's a lot of commuters. So, but we considered bump outs as well. That's an excellent point. But this intersection doesn't lend itself to bump outs just because it's really not a very wide intersection. And then also, there's really we can provide ADA compliant ramps within each of the corners. As far as diminishing or lowering the speed, the actual 85th percentile travel speed, that can be done through signal control. I don't know if Debbie can speak to that. That's potential. There's other traffic calming measures, but that's more quarter wide. We really can't address it on this project, but that's something that may be able to discuss. I think Anthony is on also from Morristown, and he might be able to speak to that if there's anything quarter wide going on.
And there's conversations that, you know, we can have with Morristown offline about this. You know, if there are recommendations that we could do for traffic calming within the intersection that we can put out separately as a project quarter wide, you know, that's something the county would consider. I mean, it's not like we're going to do this and disappear. We're going to be available to do more. And maybe there's some, you know, shoulder line striping we could do to do that narrow lanes to try to slow people down. I mean, I know we did look at trying the split phasing here, which my understanding is didn't work. We tried to do that dedicated left turn onto Ridgedale Avenue. Again, that really didn't work. The volumes were just too high. But, you know, we can look at more of this when we get into final design, and we can really close up that gap on what's actually happening during the time of design.
Thank you so much.
Of
Thanks.
course.
And I think Rebecca's a traffic engineer because she asked for the AADT.
She did.
Yes, she did.
I gotta tell you, that single, we're gonna spend $1.2 million to design an intersection that includes a single westbound lane that serves as a gas station exit and for one townhouse complex. And admittedly, the left turns off of Ford. But otherwise, I wonder how much we're sacrificing that could be making things safer for people who walk and bike to that point if we didn't have that lane. And I have to say, the quality of life, you want to see reinvestment in all the homes that line either side of that little corridor, just give them a shoulder. I mean, there are families in there with kids. I watch them walking to Taekwondo or getting on their little bikes, and it's terrifying. There's too much traffic, too fast, too close to the curb. And it's all because of that single westbound lane for I'm guessing a relatively small group of users. And I feel like now's the only time to ask that question before this design is finalized. And I don't want to take all the time. So thanks again.
Yep.
Do you have the traffic volumes, Chris? You can bring them up really quick.
Yeah.
Hang on. Sorry, I gotta get Emily back in here.
There we go. It's kind of difficult to see because this is a little scrunched and things got cut off. But yeah, it is a small, a relatively small volume. I hate to say small, but
What, the
yeah,
left
you're
turn?
the coming westbound
volume.
on Moore Street. You have 86 in the AM peak. You have 86 vehicles
Right.
making the right turn, 23 going through. PM, it looks like you have 123 making the right, 40 something making the through.
And there are definitely alternate routes.
So
That is
so-
definitely, we could have conversations with Morristown. I mean, unfortunately, we can't
Right.
make that call because, you know, the residents down Ford Street probably wouldn't want that, you know, so that's something that, you know, Morristown would have to support before we could even consider looking into that further.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that's how it was when I started working for the county. There was no westbound lane at that time. It was a one way. And I assume when
Right.
that development down Ford was built, that's why that was changed.
yeah,
It was
that's a good point. I mean, I remember that as well. So I think that's something, but that's, like you said, would have to be a conversation with Morristown.
Correct.
thanks.
Thank you. All right, we have someone with their hand up. We also have a comment from Daniel Calas. A leading pedestrian interval is a non-infrastructure option that can further improve visibility and safety for pedestrians. This was successfully used at a signal in Morristown Medical Center to allow pedestrians a head start. I agree, and that's something we can maybe look at on top of the signal timing here, and see what the impacts are. Even we typically, I think they are between 3 and 7 seconds, and that does allow pedestrians to kind of establish themselves in the crosswalk. So that is something we can absolutely look at. I'll go to, I think next up with their hand was Nicholas. So I'll unmute you. If you want to unmute yourself, you can go ahead and chime in. Nicholas Calabrese.
Oh, he's
You had
working
your
on
hand
it,
up.
says.
Oh, there it
There you
is.
go.
Got
Gotcha.
it. All right. Thank you so much. So, yeah, I live pretty close to the intersection. I'm on 6 Ridgedale, so it's just a little bit up Ridgedale from the project. And I walk every day into town to go to work. So I work in Headquarters Plaza. So I know a lot about the intersection. And first of all, I want to say that Rebecca's claim was 100% true. That single lane really helped the traffic a lot. Everything was a lot smoother and actually flowed a lot slower too. So I can validate that claim. Second is, I notice a lot when walking on these roads that the sidewalks are very small. Like I'll be often walking and I'll have to like walk into the road to pass someone because you can't really fit more than 2 people shoulder to shoulder or one bigger person, without having to like either fumble through the bushes on someone's yard or go into the road and cross or around them. And as for the Ridgedale Ave itself, it's not mentioned in the project area, but if you go down, there are even more condos there. There's, I think, like 2 entire complexes plus the new one that was just built. So there's a lot of traffic that could come through this area to go towards the train station. So I think it makes sense to make this more biker and pedestrian friendly to take cars off the road for those users who probably take the train into Manhattan, because I know a lot of people in this area moved to this area because of that train into Manhattan to work either in the center of New York City or to work in Morristown proper. Outside of that, let me see. Yeah, that's the one thing I'm concerned about is the widening of the lanes, because I know I've done a little bit of studying in a GIS course, is that when you have wider lanes, it makes people want to go faster because they feel they have more space and more maneuverability. While I can see the argument that it does hurt the bus in being so narrow, I'm not sure where we draw the line in terms of our values for what we want in this intersection.
That's a good question, Nicholas. It is shown that if you have a narrow lane, it slightly reduces speed. It's not a significant reduce for speed, but it does have value. And but we really can't go below 11 feet. New Jersey Transit buses, their windows actually require. It's a requirement that they need the 11 feet. So that's as narrow as we were really allowed to go.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. I agree.
Oh, no
Yeah,
problem.
that's a thing that we'll just have to deal with. But the other thing is, I've also done a little bit of research in terms of inducing traffic. So the more traffic that can flow through will incentivize more people to drive if they can have a slightly shorter commute, which may increase the traffic volume of the area as a whole. And we're already pretty, saturated because there's 2 new entire office buildings just constructed with a 3rd one gonna be up soon. And I think that if we bring more traffic into the area, it will just make the clogging worse, as opposed to maybe incentivizing people to take the train, which is a pretty short walk from those office buildings.
I I think, yeah, we know the train station, the new office buildings going up, Debbie knows the roundabout, that was very interesting. Headquarters Plaza, I used to work in there myself, so that's good exercise. I used to get to walk up and down the hill there. It's bike ped safety is obviously key, and DOT, NJTPA has an intense focus on complete streets. So, sidewalk for pedestrians, they really require a minimum of 5 feet and that's for ADA compliance as well. But if, and it's not a bad idea to reduce the number of lanes, but we have found out in a lot of our other projects that we reduce the number of lanes and that the traffic doesn't necessarily go away from the area. It just shifts to another intersection or another roadway. Sometimes if you want to get that traffic calming effect, especially on a roadway like this, speed bumps are not necessarily the best. They create, problems with vehicles, especially vehicles with low clearance. But there are things like Debbie said that can be discussed with the town and afterwards along the corridor that may actually work and reduce the speeds. A lot of times we spend a lot of time and effort optimizing signals for progression of motorists and vehicles. But you can also do the reverse. You can, and I shouldn't go too far down this rabbit hole because it's Debbie's and Morristown's issue to deal with. But you can actually set your timings so that to actually slow the speed of traffic.
Got it. All right. Yep. Thanks. I just wanted to, make my experience clear to everyone and just like show what I view as like a person who maybe drives once a week and who takes public transportation and walks every day.
No, thank you very much.
Yeah,
I mean,
thank you.
It's good points you made. They were excellent.
All right, I'll let someone else take the microphone.
And thank you very much.
Thanks. Next I had with their hand up, SUR. I'm going to unmute you. SUR,
Hi.
you can unmute yourself. Hi.
Amazing. Yeah. So thank you for, doing the study on this work and the pedestrian improvements that you had already mentioned. I'm very concerned about the widening of the lanes because that would increase the space that someone might have to walk on the road. And also, it just seems very intimidating to have to cross 5 lanes. The alternative is across the street, which would be having to cross through a parking lot for the used car store. So this is just, I think this intersection is very scary for all road users. I've driven past it and I've walked past it, and I don't know that the solution is to add another lane and to remove sidewalk space. So I wanted to address that. Parents walking with their strollers might not be able to cross that as fast as someone just like walking, like an able-bodied person walking. So it doesn't seem like it's addressing how scary this intersection really is.
Chris, do you think you could put a blow up of
Yeah.
the concept with the pedestrians there? Because
Sure.
I'm hearing a lot of comments about us getting rid of sidewalk or reducing sidewalk, and that's not the case. We are widening the sidewalk and we're actually making it wider for pedestrians. Yes, we are adding the additional lane on Ridgedale, but the timing is also going to be adjusted to accommodate for that crossing.
Yes. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And again, some of the improvements here, it's harder to see because it's on
Yeah,
such a small scale.
it's a
But
tiny scale.
with like this used car lot, we found that these vehicles were parking. You could see where they're parking
Yeah.
in this aerial. They're halfway into the sidewalk. All that is actual sidewalk space that should be for
Right.
pedestrians. So with this, we're going to be putting in a curb and then putting bollards on top so that any vehicles parked in this lot can no longer encroach into pedestrian space. So that'll be an improvement at this location.
Right, and we were
Over
going to
through,
remove that light pole there so that because that was an obstacle for a pedestrian as well.
yes, now with we've made the change of new lighting here. So now instead of relocating this light pole, we can basically remove it. So we're kind of hopefully going to declutter the intersection a bit and give it again more space for pedestrians. On the south side, again, reconstruct the entire sidewalk. We just have narrow right of way here, unfortunately. And again, with these driveways here, it's not an optimal situation, but to reconstruct the sidewalk, have ADA compliant curb ramps, and again, have the push buttons available there for pedestrians should be an improvement. And then again, along Ridgedale, where we are widening, yeah, we are increasing the pedestrian crossing length, but the revised timings will be a significant improvement for pedestrian crossing time. You'll have sufficient time to cross. And again, using a slower walking speed in our calculation, we can accommodate for slower walking. Again, someone with a stroller or someone who's elderly or a school child, someone school aged. So those improvements will make it safer than what is currently in place.
I also want to ask, is this intersection going from Ridgedale making a right turn? Is it a no turn on red, or would it be considered for that kind of treatment?
I think based on the signal phasing and sight distance, it wouldn't need to be a no turn on red. So we don't
Hold
have
on,
any
which right turn?
from Ridgedale
From
onto
Ridgedale to
Morris.
And for pedestrian safety, if we needed to do that, it could be done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking, yeah, if that's a good point, she makes an excellent point.
I mean, I think the pedestrian volumes are there.
Right.
I mean, you could also do like they did on McCullough and do the blank out sign where you get the no turn on red when somebody pushes the button and they can turn. They have that on 202 in McCullough. The
Yeah.
state has the blank out, no turn on red sign. So the no turn on red would be restricted only to when there's pedestrians in the area. I mean, it's definitely something we could look at either way.
Yep.
Okay.
Unfortunately, once you put in a no turn on red, you can't remove it. So you want to make sure when you put it in there, you're happy with its being there. Because I know we've had other intersections where towns have asked us to remove it and legally you can't.
Right. It's like removing a traffic signal is extremely difficult.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great
So-
idea. Is putting the push button for no turn on red. I haven't
Yeah,
seen
or
that.
time it, whenever, maybe do a time to no turn on red when, pedestrian volumes are higher.
I've seen the no turn on red signs with a time span too on them. I've seen
Yeah,
them.
yeah. I mean,
like
it's
Jersey
definitely
City.
something we could do, pedestrian counts and we can look at that during final design.
Mhm. Debbie, has the county looked at passive pedestrian detection, or is that down the road?
We
mean,
have not, but
Yeah, that's relatively new. Yeah.
yeah. We're open to it.
Okay. I hope that answered your questions. Do you have anything else you'd like to
No, that is all.
bring up?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I'm gonna
And again,
go.
if anybody thinks of a question after they've logged off, feel free to email me. My email was in the press release. All of the questions are going to be given over to the consultant, and we will be publishing all the questions and answers. The county is going to be setting up a full website with the presentation, the questions, I believe we're going to post a recording of this presentation, so it'll all be there. It hopefully should be up by Friday.
Great.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I agree. The LPIs will be useful as well. In addition, you
Yeah.
know, so even 4 seconds to get somebody into the roadway before releasing any traffic, so they can be seen. And
Right. And when this was put in, the residential element wasn't here when this signal was first put in, and I forget what year this was installed. It's definitely a different animal today than it was when it was installed.
right.
Okay. I'm just taking a look at the chat here if there's anything we can address. Just some comments agreeing with some of the points being made. The no turn on red for pedestrians to press the button. That's a great point. Again, pedestrians should be able to activate a safe crossing with no cars turning. You know, that's something maybe we could take another look at as a pedestrian only phase. I just know operationally those are usually very difficult to accommodate. But we'll take another look at that.
But maybe a lead pedestrian phase too you'll look at, Chris?
Yeah, we'll definitely look at the LPI. The only issue with LPIs is where you have a lead left phase beginning, especially from Ridgedale Avenue, where we have the dual lefts, and that's a protected phase. The LPIs just aren't compatible with that beginning phase because you can't have a walk signal
Right.
conflicting. But we'll take a look at that wherever we can. You know, it may be that we can implement it on one side and maybe not the other. But we'll take a look at that. Sorry, let me go through the users. Robert, and okay, we'll go to Robert next. Hey, Robert, you can unmute yourself now.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. And I do understand that the concentration for the state involvement and the county involvement here is this intersection. And it's true. I think everything that Nick, Sue, and Rebecca has said, I have to agree with it. I'm a resident of town for 43 years, 13 years on Elm. The last 30 years, I've been in the same neighborhood as Rebecca. I literally walk through this intersection twice a day. I walk to the train station and back from the train station, not every day, probably 4 days a week. This intersection is currently very dangerous, very dangerous. I've had near accidents myself as a pedestrian, like Nick was referring to. I don't think you really have to appreciate the need to protect pedestrians in this intersection. Right now, for example, the walkway, there is no walkway lines crossing Ridgedale Avenue from one side of Ridgedale to the other side of Ridgedale. Literally, there's literally holes in the pavement in that area that you're lucky if you don't trip. If you do not cross the street at the trestle coming from the train station, for example, coming to the the south side of Morris Avenue, you really have to plan your trip that way because you cannot literally cross the street as it is currently operating. My point in saying this is that, Deb, I talked with you and I talked with Jillian today. We really have to talk about, you can't wait till 2027. You cannot wait till 2027. Somebody is going to die at this intersection before 2027. And we really have to sit down, and I talked with Jillian, we have to sit down with not just, you need to have people like myself, Rebecca, and others at these meetings. You just can't be talking between yourselves and not understanding what we, the people that use these streets, that live with it every day and understand how it really functions, works. So a couple of points I want to make is things that you mentioned about striping, signal striping, improvements to the sidewalks. let's figure out what we can phase in now. We cannot wait till 2027. You know, what Sue was mentioning with reference to the right turn on red. Right turn on reds, once you're in an urban area, you're no longer planning for Jefferson Township, Hanover Township, Florham Park. You are now planning for an urban center. This is a transit village. This is a state designated transit village. This is an urban area. And certain things that are conveniences for people driving cars are a very major inconvenience for people coming to an area that they're not used to. Okay, thinking a right turn on red is a very liberal statement. It can't be. You have to look at this now with the eyes of somebody living, working, traveling through an urban area. This is no longer a suburban town or a semi-suburban town. This is an urban high traffic area. So I think a lot of what we've heard here today is absolutely true. I agree wholeheartedly with the concept of the westbound lane. I very rarely even see a car there. If anything, it creates a point of confusion for both the pedestrian and the motor vehicles traveling through this intersection, because no one's really used to seeing cars coming in and out, coming out of or out of that area, and it serves a very limited purpose. But with all that being said, one of the things I'm going to keep on the top of my list, and Deb, talk with Jillian, we got to create a forum to continue to track this, to see what we can do with reference to this intersection sooner than later. Okay, what do we have to do immediately, i.e. paint crosswalks, fill in potholes, okay, to make this a safer intersection? And secondly, when we're at it, we might as well look at the whole traffic between Elm Street all the way up to Lafayette. A lot of promises have been made in the past. This project was originally part of the M Station improvements, which is bringing hundreds, if not thousands, of people to come work here in Morristown. You know, it was part of a project that was approved and part of a traffic study that was approved 4 or 5 years ago. Okay, everybody's correct. You have new apartment complexes. You have it's the traffic, the pedestrian traffic is only going to grow. The motor vehicle traffic is only going to grow. We have to slow it down and we have to make it safe. So my last point on this again is, Deb, we got to meet sooner than later to talk about Morris Avenue and about this intersection, particularly this intersection, but all of Morris Avenue. And you've got to include the public in those meetings, because we don't know what's going on. And it's been a point of frustration, and it's been talked at numerous planning board meetings and in other forums. And I will tell you, my constituents, I'm the first ward council person. I've been there now for 9 years. I've got another 3 years to go, so you can't get rid of me, okay? We have to start having a serious discussion about what we're doing to improve this situation. I'll leave it at that.
All right. Thank you, Robert. Take a quick look at some of these chat.
So let me ask the question, can it be phased?
I'm sorry?
Let me ask the question, can this be phased? Do you have to wait till 2027 to start doing these improvements?
Oh,
Or is it a
I
matter
can
of
answer
doing
that
it with
question.
funding or not with funding?
This project is being funded with federal dollars and it goes through the federal process. So we're in preliminary engineering, but the project won't get its construction authorization for a few years. When we complete preliminary
Deb, let me
engineering, we'll go.
Let me ask a question then, Deb, because part of these improvements were originally part of the traffic study and the traffic requirements associated with M Station, where the developer and or the town were going to be picking up some of the expenses before the grant came through and before the county assumed the ownership of this intersection. Okay, should we be going back and actually looking at what we should have done on an interim basis? Because with the development that is going on this roadway, okay, we cannot afford to wait. It was identified as a need as part of the M Station approval. It was discussed during the Maxon Morris project, okay? So these are things or improvements that were identified as being needed 4, 5, up to 6 years ago. And we're just kicking it down. Now we're kicking it because, okay, we got funding to get it done in 2027. So maybe we have to relook at the fact that, did we not appreciate the situation when we said we're going to defer totally to the county and totally to the grant?
We wouldn't know. That would, the M Station, the plans and the improvements that may have been coordinated with any of the developments in the area. I do not know, and I
But
don't
this is
think.
what I mean about dialogue between the town and the county, and you have to include other people in the dialogue, because obviously that was not being done.
And I don't believe that the improvements that M Station was doing were to the caliber of what we're doing here.
No, but there
And-
was some of it was, Deb. Some of it was,
Some of
i.e.
yes, but
the
you know,
widening of adding the lane, improving the crosswalks, there was signaling studies being done back at that time.
correct, but it wasn't to this caliber. And not to say that there isn't phasing that we can do in the interim, like, you know, looking at the pedestrian phasing and things like that can be done now with the existing signal. I mean, it doesn't need to be a replacement. There could be timing changes. And unfortunately, those things fall under Morristown, not the county. And we are there to aid them in that. But we need to start having those conversations with the officials in Morristown.
Okay, Deb, just do me one favor, include us in the conversations.
Absolutely. I mean,
Because-
we've had
Seriously,
town
this has been
officials
going on-
meetings.
Because this discussion's been going on since Rebecca was council person.
Yes,
So if you
we
add
have
our 2 terms
invited,
together, it's been going on for 20 years.
that Morristown has been invited to every meeting we've had on this project. So, you know, and if we need more meetings, then, you know, we'll be at that table as well.
All right. Thank you, Robert. I'm just looking through the meeting chat to see if there's anything we can address here. I know there's some people that have had their hand up for a while, so I'm going to get to them first, if that's all right. I'm just going to go down my list here. Emily, I'm going to allow your mic if you'd like to hop in. Thanks for being patient.
Of course, I'm hoping you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I live in Washington's headquarters, and I have a couple of things to add, although a lot of what I would have liked to say has already been said. But this is our pathway into town, and I took my younger child in her stroller over to the coffee shop to Racel last weekend, just to see if I was misremembering how this intersection worked as a pedestrian. And we walked over on the south side of the street, and it was fine. The road was soapy because they were washing the trucks, but it was fine. But on the way back, when I pressed and got signaled to cross on the north side of Ridgedale, you're very much at the goodwill and the alertness of the cars who are stopped, and hoping that they see you. And lucky for us, right? Like, everybody saw us and it was fine. But that was 10:30 in the morning on a Saturday. And I would hesitate to ever take my child through that intersection, in anything other than a perfectly sunny, low traffic day. And even if I were just myself on my own, because I don't have to, I'm not out there walking. So I would encourage you to not rely too heavily on whatever your current pedestrian studies are telling you, because there are a lot of us who would very much like to walk into town, bike into town, for whom that's our only way to go. And because we aren't required to, because that's the way that we get to our job, but we might like to spend money in town, to enjoy town, to keep our cars off the road. We're not doing it right now because it's so unsafe. So I think that's my main point is, if cars can still take a right on red, nothing else matters. And if we're hoping that they will see a small sign that says between X and Y o'clock, don't do this, I don't think that's going to do a whole lot. And I'll just contrast that with the experience of going from the green into M Station, where you can press the button and have the lights flash and the cars know they have to wait, is a much more pleasant pedestrian experience and a much safer feeling pedestrian experience. So that's it from me. And thank you for letting me share my experiences.
Thank you.
I guess you're talking about the rectangular rapid flashing beacons that has the walk sign and then the yellow.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, look, a car can always be not paying attention and do something wrong, right? Nothing
No.
is going to stop it all the time. But the idea that you can say, I'm here right now I need to cross, and
Yeah,
something will flash, and it doesn't matter if it's foggy or rush hour or dark. You have a high level of confidence that a car will see those flashing lights.
Yeah, no, I agree. They're very they're great visibility. You can't use them with a traffic signal though, but I agree.
And maybe there's I'm not saying that's the solution. I'm just contrasting the feeling of walking from the green across to M Station versus, walking from Washington's headquarters or the apartments there into town on that intersection. I'm sure there are more people like me who would like to use it and can't. And when I think about, like, my kids are very young now, they're not going anywhere on their own, but that's going to be the way that our neighborhood, there must be 50 kids under the age of 10 that I could walk to their houses easily. They're all going to want to go into town and hang out. And how terrifying for us as parents to think that this is the way that they have to get into town if we're not driving them.
And you're right, Rebecca, it is a hawk signal by the roundabout.
Very good. All right, I think Matthew Williams, you had your hand up for a bit. I'll go to you next, if that's all right. So you should be able to unmute now. Hi, Matthew Williams. You should be able to unmute yourself if you'd like to speak.
Matthew's having tech issues.
Oh, okay. He did enter some comments in the chat.
Yeah.
Let me go back to the. Sorry, you've had a lot of very good input here. I'm losing my spot in it because every time I switch screens here, so apologize. Bear with me for a second. He said in the westbound lane on the Morris is removed. Yeah, if the westbound lane on Morris is removed, then there could be a pickup or drop off lane in front of Max on Morris to eliminate delivery drivers stopping and a no stopping street. And someone had also seconded that. Yeah, Rebecca had said even the United States Post Office blocks a travel lane when making deliveries. So that's a point. That's something could be discussed between the town and the county. Again, Matthew, potholes are an issue, as we've heard.
Hey, Debbie, I got a quick question for Debbie. I'm going to have a question. Before Morris Street, when it was, people on Ford Avenue, did they go down to Hill and then Elm, right?
I would have said I probably started around when that change happened.
Yeah.
So I really don't know.
I'm
I
trying
would
to
assume
think.
so. I started in 2008, and I feel like when I started, it was a one-way, that section. And I'm sure Rebecca could probably tell me when that was,
Yeah.
that changed.
I just put it in the chat.
I guess
Yeah.
there would be a lot of opposition, depending on the people who live on Ford and Taft.
So
Is
I
that
would
something?
say that I think having lived through the lane reduction on Morris, which Chris Fitz knows took us like 7 years. Because we've had the benefit of this pilot period, people will have found out whether it worked or not, and we won't really know unless we ask them. But it won't be the same sort of fear of change so much as asking, how did it go? While that lane was closed, you know, what did you do? How'd you get around? Was it better or worse?
I see Karen's had her hand up for a bit, so I'm going to unmute her. Karen Kine, if that's, sorry if I butchered your
Yes.
last name. Hi,
Keen. Okay,
Kane.
I
Nice to meet you.
live in the Elephant Park section right off Lafayette. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm looking at the diagram and you want to add another lane. Are you going to have this going from Lafayette Avenue down to Ridgedale?
No.
No.
Where is it going to start?
So it'll begin, I want to say about 100, 150 feet in advance of the intersection. It's just a second left turn lane because we have a high left turning volume. It's just to allow that through the intersection, you know, and a reasonable amount of green time because we
So
have other. Yep.
you're gonna take property from the gas station to do this? Is that your idea? There's no property on the other side.
The property has already been taken. M Station secured that property.
The gas station, you're taking it?
Yeah, that's already been completed.
Is that the only portion you're taking? You're not taking any others?
No.
Well,
Okay.
we have, based on our grading, to
Oh, there's a little
transition back,
triangle.
we do have a small section from the property immediately north of the gas station
Mhm.
where we will be taking a very small amount of right of way just to transition and complete the sidewalk connection back to existing. And then also in the northwest corner, there is an existing light pole and sign which are within the radius of this corner. So we'll be taking a small section of right of way, and we'll need a small easement just to relocate the sign and their lighting.
Have you thought of eliminating that Morris Avenue? It was always one way, and then when they built the condos, they made it lane down to Morris. But if you eliminate that, the people can go right on 287 and at the next exit get off and even pick up 287 south.
Yeah, that's been a common theme of tonight's meeting. Our project is focused primarily just at this intersection, not changing any of the approach roadways.
Okay.
But I think that's something that the county and Morristown could discuss.
Well, now you're going to have 4 lanes altogether. Is that it? 3?
Morris Street will be the same cross section it currently is. Will be 1 westbound lane and 2 eastbound lanes.
I'm talking now Ridgedale. How many lanes?
Ridgedale will north of our intersection. It'll continue to be a 4-lane section as it is. We have a 5-lane section just at the intersection, for the dual left turn lanes.
So it'll be 5 lanes?
Yes.
Okay. And it's going to be wide enough to, get, with 5 lanes in there. It's tough now with the 2, 3 lanes.
Yeah, that's why we'll be widening the roadway to the east into the area of the gas station parking lot to accommodate the additional lane. And all 5 lanes will be 11 feet wide, which is the minimum for NJ Transit buses.
Okay. That should be it, the questions I had.
Great. Thank you. find my place in the meeting chat. Is there, I believe everyone with their hand up, I've unmuted at this point. So I'm going to go back through the chat.
Chris, I was looking through the chat. I just wanted to answer one question regarding the picking and planning. The comment was, this is legally required meeting is this legally required meeting is the only one for the planning phase, correct? I just want to clarify that this project is in the preliminary engineering phases. We have programs through the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority that do planning studies, they do concept development where they explore alternatives, they pick one, and then they advance into design. This particular program, the local safety program, it's an application that's submitted by the county, and then once it's selected for a particular year, it advances straight into preliminary engineering. But in the preliminary engineering phase, where we're refining the layout that was proposed in the application, that's when we're having this public meeting. And if need be, we'll come back and have another one. It sounds like there's going to be conversations between the county and the municipality about not just this intersection, but the greater area. And we don't have to rush to submit the environmental document for this particular intersection until the comments and things are addressed. And I mean, we have a little bit of time, you know, in case we're going to make any adjustments here. So we'll wait for those conversations to take place, and then the county can proceed. And if we
Thanks.
need to come back for another meeting because things have changed or adjusted, or you know, the county wants to explain what's been done, we'll set up another public meeting in the final design phase.
Thanks, Christine.
And also, Debbie, I think she mentioned it earlier, the county's setting up on the county website I don't know if it's a web page, but a place where she'll direct everybody to go to receive more updates and information, like the responses to the comments and the questions tonight, a copy of this presentation, the recording of this meeting, any other information that we put out there.
Yeah, it'll all be listed under the Morris County's main website through the engineering tab, and I think it's a projects is the tab. I don't know off the top of my head, but we'll be setting it up soon. All the county projects are listed under that page, and we'll just add this one to it.
And Christine, just to add to that before too, was there was a road safety audit done on this as
Thank
well.
you.
There was.
So
And that was also funded by Federal Highway. So the road safety audit was done prior to the application that was submitted. And the road safety audit was more than just this intersection. It was a number of intersections that were walked, and by a group, they called it a multidisciplinary group of professionals. So there were people from DOT, New Jersey Transit was present. GPI happened to be the consultant that was on that road safety audit. We had local as well, and the county, and they walked each intersection and came up with a list of short-term, medium, and long-term recommendations. And then that's what that was the predecessor to the county submitting this application for this particular intersection. Thanks, Bernie, for mentioning that.
Oh, no problem.
Thanks.
Someone's at the door.
I'll pick up with some of the comments. Matthew J. Williams stated potholes all over, no lane markings, which is a common comment we've been receiving. Nicholas stated, yes, I've had trouble crossing the street towards the gas station. I always cross from Ridgedale towards Max on Morris if I want to walk away from town. Forum is a great idea. That was the question Christina just addressed, this legally required meeting. Again, we can come back out and do another PIC once we have some conversations with the county and municipality. Robert, again, can this be phased? That's something maybe, again, could be discussed between the township and the county. Is it possible to travel westbound on Morris towards Spring Street? Or it's impossible to travel westbound on Morris towards Spring Street and the high school between 4:30 and 6 p.m. Yeah, I have to take a look and see what our peak hour was. Be curious to see if I would imagine it falls in that range. I want to say it was around 5:15, but we'll take a look at our peaks. I never feel safe biking into town. Anytime I try biking, cars swerve around me. You cannot cross Morris into to Lackawanna on the east side of that intersection. On the west side of Lackawanna Morris intersection, stanchions for the train track seem to entirely prevent anyone from making a safe ADA compliant way across the street. Jillian chimed in about the Hawks signal at the roundabout.
Yeah,
So to
there's
Rebecca.
two Hawk signals there, and there's also an RF, a rectangular flashing beacon.
I'd like to go out there and see.
There's two RRFBs.
Oh, there's
one
two.
on Spring. There's one on Morris. The Hawk is on the street, that side street by Dunkin' Donuts, and
Yep.
the one in front of the M station. So every crossing has either an RRFB or a Hawk. We got it all. The roundabout that has it all.
And how's it going? Is it
Don't ask.
okay?
I was gonna say, whenever I hear a Hawk, I get worried because there's one down the street from my house and no one knows what they're doing.
No.
The cars don't know what they're doing. Pedestrians don't know what they're doing, and typically police just comes out and directs traffic anyway.
Yeah, the
Right.
Hawk is. That's why I like the flashing beacons. It's pretty intuitive. The Hawk system, you are with the red signal, the motorist is not allowed to proceed, obviously. But
Right.
with a flashing red, you are allowed to proceed as long as you have looked to make sure there's no pedestrians.
Right.
Yeah, it's very confusing, but.
Another comment: Morris Street is so scary to drive and bike because of the 2 lanes and parking. Although this isn't the scope of the project, it would feel safer to cross if there was only 1 lane. Another comment: yes, since 2020, so many young families have moved to Morristown east of 287. And then Emily stated, speaking of young kids, I need to leave. Thanks again for hearing my comments. Okay. I just started reading and I don't.
Yeah.
Will the chat transcript be available for public for reference? That would be great to have. I think we can probably include that in the minutes. And again, if we could provide any provide any responses to anything that we can't necessarily respond to right now in the minutes, and then the any input we received after the meeting as well, we'll provide responses for everything.
Right. I guess the big thing was, it seemed to be a lot of talk about the westbound Morris Street
Yes.
lane, and those are our conversations that we'll have to start with Morristown, and I'm not sure how that's going to pan out, but if something does happen with that, that could change the whole design.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Then you don't really, then you almost don't need to widen Ridgedale because you don't need those 2 receiving lanes from Morris to Ridgedale.
Right.
You could
Yes.
almost reduce Ridgedale to 1 lane and then open it up at the signal. So
But
again, things could change drastically.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd make my life a lot easier designing the improvements here if there was no westbound traffic. But
Yeah. But
there's a lot of people that live there.
The westbound traffic, was put in for a reason.
Exactly, and that's
So.
And I don't know the legalities behind that, and I don't know what really drove the project to put that in.
Exactly.
And it seemed, once you put something in, just like that no turn on red we talked about, once you put something in, it's hard to get rid of it.
I was just going to say that, the people there are used to that. And now any businesses that are located, east of this intersection, they're going to they're impacted.
Right.
But it's something,
Of course.
Yeah, can be discussed.
Absolutely.
Here's Riley said change in signal timing. Mayor said it was up to the state and county. This conversation seems to refute that. Can you make this clear to the mayor and council?
So I mean, the intersection of Morris and Ridgedale is not owned or maintained by the county of Morris. So any changes to a timing directive comes from the municipality. The county can aid them in that, but because it is considered maintenance, it is up to the municipality. So that's my quick and easy answer to that question. And, you know, if we're going to type up answers and you need me to, you know, further clarify that question, you know, it could be a simple consultant study of existing traffic volumes and an update to the timing directive.
Right, and we already have that
And I-
information.
And I
Yep.
know something was done here, and Morristown did it, so I don't know why they would say that that's not them, because they already updated the signal timing at this intersection. Right? Didn't you, Bernie, do that? That coordination
Oh my
throughout
God, yeah,
Morris?
that was
And
that was
that was you, right? So
yeah, yeah, the coordinating with NJDOT
oh,
to
right, okay.
try to get all these
The coordination. Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, because you started down, did you start at Ford and Morris? Or did you did these? I believe you started
Yeah,
at
yeah,
least
that
at
was part
Ridgedale and
of,
Morris.
there's, I forget how many intersections Anthony's on. He probably remembers better than I do. And then basically it was, you know, replacing all the controllers within the cabinets and then coordinating the intersections using, you know, you know, basically not broadband, what is it called? The GPS units installed. Also, GPS
Oh,
units, new
okay.
controllers were installed, and the signal timing was updated at that time.
Right.
But you know, things have changed. MUTC has made modifications. There's you know, you can make you can increase the peg crossing time. So these are all things
Right.
like you said, Morristown can implement.
Yeah.
Matthew stated we need a pickup and drop off lane at Max on Morris. I can certainly see that, especially for anyone ordering Grubhub or the number of delivery services we all rely on these days. Drivers wait for a ped to push the button and cross the spring so they can enter and exit lot 10.
Was that Rebecca's smiley face?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
I like that. Thank you.
it's true.
No, I know. It's and Spring is a very busy street. I mean,
It is.
I was surprised when the roundabout went in. But
It works great. It works
does
great.
it?
It's just, I've never been so grateful to see a pedestrian. It's like, oh, if they push the button, I might be able to turn into the diner, or I might be able to
Oh,
get out of this lot. Because when there were lights, there were long periods where there were no cars on Morris. Then the signals would change and all the drivers would come rushing through. I mean, you saw people, not everybody is running across Morris, but people are turning left in and out because it's permitted. People turn left into the new Deloitte headquarters garage, which blows my mind. And they turn left from Morris to get into lot 10. Tremendous number. And
oh,
there's no good luck because the cars don't, there's no break in the traffic unless a pedestrian tries to cross the street and activates the beacon. Fascinating.
yeah. But you're happy with the roundabout.
You know, I have only ridden my bike
She got quiet.
as a driver. Yes. As a pedestrian, I am because of the amenities that were added with it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
So
exactly it.
that's all good. But for when I see it's made it a lot scarier to bike or scooter through, and lots of people do.
Yes.
So that's the one area where I don't see how it's done anything to make things better. But for all other users, I think it is a
No,
good thing.
you're right. And I'm sorry I'm diverging from this project, Chris and Christine and Deb, but I'm really interested in what Rebecca has to say on that. Because yeah, the pedestrians, it's pretty fairly straightforward to accommodate them at a roundabout. But bicyclists are very difficult because either they're going to be um, an experienced bicyclist and they're going to drive with the flow of traffic, or if they're not, they theoretically could walk around, but then who's going to do that, right? You're going to dismount
and
and
then-
walk around.
And
So it's-
also for anybody who does ride, because of the change in topography,
Right.
to get on your bike and head uphill, you've got to
Yep.
be strong and skilled and
Yep.
maybe not carrying a lot of stuff like a cargo bike or something or a commuter. It's
No.
it's not
No.
easy.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm fat and old, and I use I went to electric bike, but no, I'm sorry to digress, but that's
Yeah,
good to know.
Bernie, that's a real digression there.
But I think it's important to just, it's a great example of how what we do at the intersection at Ridgedale and Morris can really either protect a neighborhood and enable it and increase the value of it, or it can make it worse. So I'm really glad that you're taking all of this into consideration and that there is a moment to pause and think about those 87 peak left hour cars or whatever they are. And if it's even still true now, I don't know, because some people may have changed their patterns after the closure and not returned to what they had been doing. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes next.
Chris, I see that Sasha's joined us and she's
Oh,
got her
I saw
hand
she
up.
snuck. I saw she snuck in. Sasha, you can unmute yourself now. I said, sorry about that.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. My name is
Hi.
Sasha Frimpong. I'm the Director of Local Programs with NJTPA. First of all, just thank you all for your time this evening and all the great dialogue and comments that have been made. I noticed there's a comment in the chat regarding the mayor for the township saying whose jurisdiction it is to, and I guess responsibility for things like signal timing, what belongs to what's under the township's purview and what's under the county. And there's reasons for that. And maybe it might be helpful to explain that a little bit, and why it's what the county is saying here. Maybe Debbie, that's you too, is different from what the mayor is saying. Could you just explain that a little bit?
Yes, so
Thank
the county, even though it is a county road, it's a county road and a municipal road. Ridgedale Avenue is not a county road, that is under the municipality. And a agreement was done, I want to say in the 70s, that once a traffic signal is installed, the maintenance and the ownership of that signal goes to the municipality. They pay for the power and they pay for the maintenance of that signal. So any type of timing change or any little sort of modifications that would be made to that signal would be under the municipality. And we do that, number one, so, they are involved in the design and construction, it gives them their buy-in to the intersection. And number two, they know the intersection on a day-to-day basis. So if there are needs that they need to do to maintain that intersection, they have the power to do so. So, that being said, any kind of small changes that need to be done, not that the county isn't here to aid them in that, but it is really under their jurisdiction to do that type of maintenance. A full replacement, the design of a replacement is something that we work with municipalities. And even during construction, if this wasn't a federal project and we were to do this in-house with the county, this intersection would be a cost share with the municipality, which would mean that we would use county funding and municipal funding to do this project. Whereas because we went for this grant, we're going to be using federal money. So I don't know if that explains everything. I don't know if you have any other questions, but that has been that way since probably, I want to say it was 71, 72, that agreement was put into place.
Yes. So I just wanted you to explain that because that's what we experience a lot. And I think, because there's so many different levels of government, usually
Yeah,
the public, facility, it can kind of be a little bit confusing as to who,
it is.
like who's actually responsible for what.
Right,
And
right. And because there's a lot of turnover in municipalities, depending on who you talk to, they don't always know,
right.
how it works. You know,
Yeah.
so sometimes they just say, well, it's a county road, it's the county's, which isn't always the case.
Right, right. So at least for this particular group on this call, now you have a little bit more information, not just
Right.
for
Yes.
this intersection and this signal, but probably other things within your town as well too. So, you can talk about it and ask questions from that with that information in hand as well too. So thank you very
Thanks, Sasha.
It would not pass muster in England.
I know, I just read that. I chuckle. I need to go to England and see theirs.
I was in Ireland in the spring for a wedding, and the roundabouts function fine, but they have like a 100th of the traffic that we have here.
Well, and
So-
I think that in other countries, they're out there. There's so many more of them, so they're used to them. They're second nature. Whereas here, there's just not as many, and they're different to us.
Yeah.
Right, but they're gaining in popularity. They
They-
definitely they enhance safety for, reduce the number of conflict points. So they're coming. There's nothing we can do to stop them. So
No,
that's a proven safety countermeasure from FHWA.
and we cannot fit one at Morris and Ridgedale.
No, we looked at
We're not putting
that.
one there.
No.
We did look at that, but yeah, it just would not work.
No.
Amish buggies navigate them. Oh my God, she's so right. I drive that 222 in PA. I've gone down, and it's an interesting road, right, Rebecca? When you drive
Yes.
down, that's a fairly high speed road, and they have roundabouts every few miles, and but people
They
are used
work.
to them, right?
Mm.
It's way better than sitting at needless traffic lights on 22
Right.
westbound across like Hunterdon County.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it works a lot better.
No, you're absolutely right. I can't believe you brought that up. I was actually out there recently and I saw a buggy. So
Yeah.
yeah, they seem to have worked it out.
The horses understand them. I mean, the horses can understand them. We should be able to understand them, right,
We
Brent?
should be able to understand that. Yes. Yeah. But good reference. Thanks.
It's great to hear all your voices. I'm going to leave work and head home for dinner. Thanks again.
Oh,
Thank
thank you
you.
for joining
Thanks,
us. and thank
Rebecca.
you for all the- Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
So if there's any other comments or questions or anything, feel
More
free to
discussion
jump in
points.
or discussion or talk about horses. Feel free to jump in. Otherwise, again, you're free to leave whenever you want. We'll be here till 7 o'clock.
If not, we could talk more about the roundabouts. So.
I don't know what she means by reduce the cost on Ridgedale, invest in a safer corridor.
Well, did I miss something?
Maybe she's talking about the widening on Ridgedale. The context is definitely
Yeah,
involved.
I
Laura
think
20.
I'd rather see maybe a corridor-wide project as opposed to an intersection improvement project.
Yeah, and just for the record, we did it that way, because I know the road safety audit did include more than just this intersection.
Right.
But at that time, M Station was building a roundabout. They were making improvements to Elm Street. So there was already upgrades at those intersections proposed. And they were minor. I mean, the roundabout was huge, and we didn't know how that was going to affect Lafayette and how that was going to affect Elm. But Ridgedale and Morris has always been very high on my complaint list from the residents because of the PEDs. And, I've met with Morristown officials down there, and there was just so many obstacles between drainage structures, utility poles, signal poles. Like, it was such a challenge to try to upgrade that intersection, to put
Right.
it, to just kind of band-aid it to make those pedestrian improvements, it just was impossible. It needed so much more than just some ADA ramps. And that is why it was a high priority for us to put it on for this federal grant. Because it was outdated.
Yeah, and then when they added the gas station, that
Right,
made it even more challenging of an intersection too. So
right. And then, you got the tow company and the lot, and it just, it wasn't something that could even be done between the county and the township very easily. It would have cost a lot of money.
yeah, I lived on Ridgedale, and I used to work in Headquarters Plaza um, on my night job, and then I worked by the courthouse on my day job. And walking around that corner always used to frustrate me because the cars were from the used car lot were always parked out on the
Right.
sidewalk. And I have to agree with some of the comments. You did almost have to always walk out on the
Yeah.
road at that corner. So
Yeah, and installing those bollards to keep those cars parked on the lot and off the sidewalk is it's gonna be a huge improvement for that segment.
I think somebody has their hand up.
Yeah, Matthew has his hand up. I know he was having issues getting his microphone to work, but if you should be able to unmute yourself if you'd like to join.
Can you unmute him or?
I can't physically unmute his mic, but the only thing I could do is enable it so he can unmute it. But
I just got.
and then I saw Robert also has his hand up. Robert, you should be unmuted as well. You can unmute.
I'm sorry, this is Bob again. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, because I had to switch my phone also. I'm actually, the point that I'm hearing here is what was our level of thought when we were going for the federal grant, when we had funding through an approved project? I mean, we do have to sit and talk about this because it's not good, that we went around to find a grant when we did have an approved project with responsible parties for the traffic improvements. So we really have to take a look at this because there is some work you're hearing on this call. There's some work that is a safety issue today. And so I'm just going to say one more time in case I get lost because I am on a train now. We really got to make sure that if there is other funding that has to come from the county or has to come from the town or has to come from a developer, that we talk about what we have to fund now. And so in the context of your plan, am I making sense?
Yeah.
Because everything you're hearing, I'm sorry, I can't make light of this situation. We cannot say, get off this phone and say, okay, we're going to go through this 5-year process. We can't do that.
Well, hopefully there's ways to, I think Debbie said, work with the town and with the existing signal, there are some improvements, increasing the pedestrian clearance time and at least some interim improvements can be made. But what you say makes sense,
Yeah. So maybe one of the things you could do to help with that is give us an explanation of how some of this work could possibly be phased. And if there is work that should be done immediately, how do we pull that up and actually find alternate funding for it possibly?
that would be a conversation with the county and Morristown.
I do, but what you're telling me I have to do is we have to cut through this town. And again, I'm going to stress with both the town and the county, when you have these conversations, please have me and some other people at the table what you're saying about what years ago, what it was like. Rebecca, I've lived in this town now for 43 years. I've been in this ward for 43 years. We know the history. We know what really goes on in these intersections.
Thanks. I saw Matthew rejoined. I enabled your mic, so if you can get it working. Hey, I think I hear something.
Is it working?
Yep.
Right.
It only took an hour and 45 minutes, but you got it.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry about that. I wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I know this particular meeting is about this intersection, and I did put in the comments that one of the things I think would work great here is if that westbound lane can get closed and then take some space to do a pickup drop off in front of Max on Morris, because I can't tell you how frustrating it is when you're going west on Morris and somebody all of a sudden, without any warning, stops and parks to deliver a Uber Eats or whatever. And it's like, what are you kidding me? How did that development get approved without having a curb that they could pull into? And there's no enforcement, and you got 2 lanes of traffic. And as Rebecca said, everybody's trying to rush to get to 287, so they're speeding through there, and then all of a sudden, pow, somebody's parking in your lane of traffic. It's like, it's maddening. And it's only a matter of time before someone does get hurt there. The other comment I have is, again, I know we're only talking about this intersection here at this meeting, but as Bob said, if we can take a bigger look at the picture, the traffic going through town at 5 o'clock, it's a nightmare. I mean, I live in Washington's headquarters, around the corner from Rebecca and Bob. I got 2 high school kids who constantly have to be picked up or dropped off from, after school activities, and trying to get from Washington headquarters to the high school down Morris and up Spring can take 45 minutes at between 4:30 and 6 o'clock. And then when you do get to come back the other way and you're heading east on Morris, you got 6 potholes in about 1 block, and you've got no lane striping, and it's a madhouse. I mean, there's simple things that could be addressed to fix potholes and lane striping. Like, how hard is that? So that's my beef, but I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Matthew.
And you have my sympathy with high school. My kids are now all out of college, so I'm pretty happy. But I remember doing the drive,
Well, as Emily or whoever it was said, there's a ton of kids in this neighborhood, and the other developments on the east end of Morris. So if it were safer for them to ride or bike and I didn't have to drive, wow, wouldn't that be great? But it's just not realistic at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A comment about the left turn from South Street onto Elm is a disaster going to council meetings. Same for making a left on Morris Street onto Elm. Morris Street making left onto Elm is also difficult. I see this mentioned on next door.
Yeah, that's definitely difficult.
I hear a lot about potholes. Has this been brought to the road department's attention? Are these on Morris Street or Ridgedale?
There's a ton of them on Morris. And I've written in, I haven't seen any action on it. You know, it's a combination of potholes and I think water shut off. You know,
Is it from the construction from Ridgedale to
No,
Taft, or it's on the other side?
it's on the westbound side of, not westbound, eastbound side of Morris, like in front of the Mavis tire place. There's
Okay.
probably two or three right there.
Okay.
And you can't avoid them.
Yeah,
If you want-
listen, I'll bring that to the road department's attention. I mean, it should be taken care of before winter gets here, or it's just gonna get worse.
But they're where they have the water shutoffs in the street.
Right.
Uh,
Oh, so it's at the valve is where
like a
it's
missing-
the pothole? Yeah.
Missing valve cover. Yeah.
Exactly.
Then it might be something that they're reaching out to the utility companies and maybe they're not answering. But I will look into it and we'll see if we can get that rectified. That should be
God.
easy. That shouldn't be that hard.
That would be a blessing, you know, because again, you traveling the path 3 times a day and hitting the same pothole every time because you
Right.
can't avoid it.
It becomes a part of your commute going around the pothole.
That's right. Aiming for pedestrians, you know, like.
I made a note for myself. I will look into that on tomorrow morning. And I will drive it myself and look and see where they all are.
There's several of them on Spring as well. You know, when you come down from what is that, Ridgedale? Not Ridgedale, Speedwell. When you come down from Speedwell on Spring, boom, 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 because that intersection.
I think that's the municipal. I think that's the town road, Spring. I can't help you there, sorry.
All right.
But we will send an email out to the town engineer about that as well, though.
I see we just had someone call in. So I'll allow their mic if they just want to speak.
Yeah.
Your phone number ends in 5593. If you'd like to come on mic, and if you have any comments, we're nearing the end of our PIC, which ends at 7. So see if we can answer any questions you may have. Should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hi, this is Bob Iannico. I'm just listening in. I had to switch over to my phone.
Oh, okay. No
That's
problem. All right.
It was
Thanks.
a good call. It's a very good meeting. Thank you guys again for doing it.
Of course.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you. And we just had someone join, Brian here. I'll allow your mic, Brian.
I have no questions. I'm just listening in.
Oh, okay.
I know I'm very late.
That's okay. We should be posting this meeting is being recorded. It'll be posted to the county's project webpage. So if you'd like to view it at your own leisure, and then if you have any comments or input, you can email them to Debbie. There'll be instructions on the website for that.
Yeah, I think my email is posted on the press release. Well, overall, I think we got some very good comments, a lot to think about, a lot to discuss.
I agree.
Yeah.
You know, perhaps Christine, maybe we'll have to do another meeting.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think the county and the municipality have to get together and talk about some things, and then
Yep.
when you're ready, contact Chris and Bernie, and I will meet again, and if they need to make changes to the plans, we'll do that. We won't advance the environmental document until you're comfortable.
Okay. Yep. I agree.
Yeah. it'd
And
be
and
int-
if you want to set up another public meeting, we can do that, whatever you prefer. If you want to do that before the environmental document, or if you want to do that when we get into final design, I leave that up to you.
Okay. Yeah, and we're gonna leave the questions open on the website for a while, and we'll see what other questions.
And
You know,
comments, yeah.
Yeah, I think we've getting a lot of the same. I think we can see where we're going with this. Okay.
It was sometime between 2002 and 2007 as I look through the historic, Google Earth historic, aerials that
Okay.
they switched, for Ford when they
Okay.
switched over.
So I did get a
She-
response from Chris, and he said that the hospital was part of that decision. I guess that
Ah.
was to help emergency vehicles
Okay.
have better access to the town. I guess that helped them, you know, ambulances and, you know, emergency services.
I can see
That
that.
again.
Yes. So it wasn't just for the Taft Ford, it was the hospital was a part of those discussions.
Okay, gotcha.
So that brings it to another level.
Yeah,
And I get that.
yeah, because I mean, they back up and then they got the rail tracks there, so you're sort of limited on the number of crossings.
Right.
So if you go, for them, if I see it, okay. So if you go out of Morristown Memorial, you go down Franklin, cross over really quick and go up Ford, right? And then get onto
Yep.
Morris. And that's Ford is one of the few crossings until you get all the way up to the
Mhm.
Elm Street.
Right.
So I can
Yeah,
see their
Ford will
point.
take you right to the back of the hospital.
Yeah, if they didn't get across on Ford, they would either have to go all the way to Elm, or they would have to go all the way back
Right.
to Madison to Normandy
Right.
and then come up the back streets. Okay. Yeah, I can see that need there.
Yeah.
I've been to Morristown a couple times.
Yeah.
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 Well, I was playing a softball game. Somebody hit a hard drive. It was down the third base line, broke my glove, knocked a couple teeth out, broke the jaw. So I still made my meeting the next morning.
Why am I not surprised?
That's
Hi, this is Bob. Can you hear me?
yeah.
Yes,
we
we
can
can hear you.
Yeah, that's not true. And again, talking with people that actually are there, the hospital, there is a right-hand turn, which is used quite often coming out of Morristown. I've never seen it. I'm back and forth from Town Hall. I walk that intersection at least twice a day. The fact is you will never see an ambulance coming out of Morristown that way because of the way the traffic flows. And there is other ways to get through, but very rarely do you see an ambulance on that westbound lane. I have never in my memory, and again, I'm there all the time. I'm in that ward. You're wrong.
Yeah,
I think if you're going to use facts like that, I think we got to basically not just ask the hospital. We actually have to look and see how those ambulances actually run and make that part of the traffic study.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that could be revisited. I'm sure Chris would know. I'm just just, I wasn't part of that conversation that was done.
No, I wasn't either. He was, I was not.
Yeah, and when you look at it from on the aerial mapping, there's only with the rail line and then 287, there's only so many crossings. So, but if they don't use it,
Right.
then it's up to bring up for a conversation.
Because if they're going to go back on 287 from Morristown, you actually go out the front of the hospital, which you do have access to.
Right.
And you hop on. It's an easy right, and an easy right back on 287. And that's really the way most of the ambulances are going, And
Yeah.
I also know because I used to run the ambulance service. So.
Oh, okay. No, I see what you're saying. Yeah, you just make the
From
right
Morristown,
on the ramp.
You make the right, boom, boom, and that's how
Boom,
they
boom.
all go to avoid going through town.
Okay. Well, once again, that's a good conversation to have. And like Christine said, we can, put a pause on the CED while that's investigated.
It would be good if you're discussing, especially the westbound direction, to get, any representatives from EMS, fire, police
Yeah,
to discuss
absolutely.
that. I think that's important.
And then Chris probably knows a lot of the history too, so.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, unfortunately, he had a county commissioners meeting and he couldn't be here.
Well, he was your predecessor as the traffic engineer, right?
That's
Back
right.
in-
He was the traffic engineer back then.
Yep.
MMH discharge, what does that say?
A discharge on the east side of the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I know that very well. All my 3 boys were born there, so.
Two at the same time.
2 at the same time.
Bernie, we learned so much about you tonight, things we didn't.
We have,
More
yeah.
than we ever wanted to.
And we have more than everyone. Thank you, Christine. I'm going to take that in a nice way.
I meant it in a nice way.
Okay.
All right, we're at 7
right.
o'clock, but we'll still continue to receive comments and questions. Just go through the webpage and the county's webpage to the project site, and we'll post this information and you can continue to provide comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you, everybody. All right. Bye.
Good
Bye.
night.
Thank you.
Good night.